For those who do not know me, my name is Reverend Veronica Valles. I'm deeply grateful to be here at Agape as we hold Lee in the consciousness of just the perfect journey that he's on. He's in Tibet right now. And how appropriate that I am bringing Anthony Bourdain. So how many of you guys know Anthony Bourdain, parts unknown? Oh my God, do we not love that man? I was devastated. In June to find out about his death. But we're going to focus on his life. We're diving, we spent, 4 parts of the series with the divine feminine and Wonder Woman. But Anthony, for me, is an embodiment of the divine masculine and also that bad boy. He just had that bad boy chef. But he is that representation of how we don't get stuck in our story. We follow our journey and the turning point that changes our life. And so I really invite you, because I had a little clip, because he was so magical in his gifted ability to connect with people as a storyteller, as a social activist for food justice. And, if he was my friend, he'd be that kind of guy, like, dude, did you just say that? Did you just say that about, you read some of his books, like, did you really just say that about women? Anthony, we need to talk, But what we're going to explore is story, journey, and turning point in our lives. And so I'm going to just do a little bit on Anthony, and then we're going to relate it to our lives. But when it comes to his story, I love this quote that he said. He goes, I should have died in my 20s. I became successful in my 40s. I became a dad in my 50s. I feel like I've stolen a car, a really nice car, and I keep looking in the rearview mirror for flashing lights, but there's been nothing yet, all right? So here's a guy, and this is the part about his story. I did not know until his passing anything of his background. I just found, Parts Unknown, season 10, and I love traveling. And so what we're exploring today is the explore your world from the inner. Next week will be explore your world in the outer, meaning how travel wakes us up to our theme of a world that works for everyone. But to explore the inner, we all have a story. We've all been led by the circumstances and choices in our life. For Anthony, I had no idea that he was a drug addict in his 20s, all right? He was addicted to heroin and cocaine. And I just imagine that if he walked into Agape, high out of his mind and sat in the back, would we embrace him wholeheartedly just where he was in his life? Because how often do we not, for ourselves or for others? And we have no understanding how each part of our life plays into this major theme of our journey. But here's this guy, working the back kitchen, started in Provincetown, washing dishes, just inspired by when he was a young boy, that first time he ate an oyster, and yet at the same time, he's got this shadow side that's expressing through addiction. No judgment. But if you looked at him, or if we met him on the street, or if it was us right now, there'd be some stories of judgment running through that whole theme. And so how often do we limit ourselves or other people by the experience that they are having? Because his story was integral to what led him to his next step of his journey. And so the journey, he says, is a part of the experience and expression of the seriousness of one's intent. One doesn't take an A train to Mecca, all right? So Anthony's journey, and I'm going to come back to all 3 points relating to us, but Anthony's journey is fascinating because here he is working in restaurants, drug addicted in his 20s, moving to, all these different places and spaces, ends up, going to culinary arts school, and then, this chef in New York City, and his journey has all these different, places that's taken him, but I wonder who knew that within this man was a most gifted storyteller that would change millions of people's lives. If you looked at him bringing out your plate at a restaurant, what would you think he was? The chef. But when he was a busboy, the busboy. We never know who we're meeting in the moment and what potential that lies within them, which is their divine gift that's seeking to reveal itself that later on actually blossoms. So his journey took him from working in the kitchens, getting his training, becoming a chef, and then what I read was that a friend of his said that he'd take him down to Mexico if he would write 2 novels, all right? So the friend must have known that there was a gifted storyteller in him. And then from there, he ended up, writing an article, and he submitted it without an agent to the New Yorker. And that's where his turning point was. Kitchen Confidential, which talks about, if you read that book, I read that book, I'm like, I'm not going out. I'm not eating at any restaurant, because he's telling you all the secrets, even though there's all this good that happens with restaurants, but this was his turning point. This was when he stepped into that which is his next adventure, and I just wonder if he had any idea what was coming. All right? So this book takes him to other books. I've been reading Nasty Bits also, and just his behind the scenes, not only as a chef, but in Nasty Bits, his behind the scenes traveling, and the way that he met people. And so the whole point is that as we're moving through our journey, we're being guided by something that is greater than us. That not knowing, but somewhere deep inside, his inherent nature knew that there was a big gift that needed to be shared in the world. And for him to have that impulsion after working long days, because how many times do we have an idea, we've worked long days, or those who have kids are like, I'm too tired, I'm not going to do it. But he would go home and write. He would go home and write. And if he hadn't have followed that dream, he wouldn't have written that article. Had he not had that article published, he would not have written this book. Had he not written this book, it would not have led to his other books and then to his travel shows, first on the Travel Channel. I can't remember I think there was one preceding No Reservations, and then come to CNN with Parts Unknown, which is where I discover him. And in the discovering of him, I met a kindred spirit. Someone that has this passion for travel, for storytelling, for connecting with people. And when he traveled, he would ask 3 questions. What makes you happy? What do you eat? And what do you like to cook? All right? So we're going to contemplate this real quick before we go diving into us. So what makes you happy? Like, what really makes you happy? How many of us say, oh, I love working 16-hour days? Sometimes I did on film sets, but after 12, I'm really tired. What do you eat? Now, I'm Italian, Mexican, and Spanish, and food is my love language, all right? And I would rather have a really great meal than a lot of fancy stuff. I'm a soulful simplicity gal. And so if you ask me, what do you eat? I was sitting with my nieces and nephews, and we were going over all this fine food because I'm raised by an Italian mother. All right? And then I have Mexican and Spanish heritage on my aunt's side. So it's all about the food, for us. And so food relates to me as love and connection. And what do you like to cook? Now, cooking for me is a way that I get to connect with that, divine intelligence that I call God, because for me it's just such a miracle how, from this tiny seed comes these vegetables, and there's all this other stuff, and we use our imagination, we weave it together. And so I'm going to ask you just to connect with each other. Just connect with someone next to you and answer these 3 questions just for 1 minute. What makes you happy? What do you eat? What do you like to cook? Connect with somebody just real quick for 1 minute. So we get a little Anthony Bourdain in us. All right, now, I know that wasn't a lot of time. I'm going to bring you guys back to the center, but I'm going to invite you to finish this conversation afterwards and go have a meal with somebody. If you can't today, go have a meal with somebody. Because what Anthony Bourdain did with food was to connect with people's stories, to understand our shared humanity, to understand how that magic of cooking, but it's not just the cooking of the food, it's the coming together. If you walk into my mother's kitchen, especially when she's cooking Italian food, you open that door and my neighbor comes over at the perfect time, he's like, what's for dinner, It connects us on such a soulful level. That was his gift. And so let's contemplate right now our stories. So where in your whole story, is there a place in your story that you need some radical acceptance? Something that you may view with a negative lens, but I want you to look at it from the lens of, but this happened, and it might not have been good. Now, turning points, when we talk about that, they don't necessarily have to be the 2x4 effect. I've had a couple of those, so I'm just saying you really don't need them. They'll bring you to a place of awareness. But in the story, sometimes we tell our stories, and there's regret, or there's shame, or there's guilt. Now, I have all sorts of things that I could share about my life, but I'd like to share about, with you, I've shared many times about the journey of illness, because that was a huge turning point for me. It was part of my story. I had to radically accept that happened for a higher reason, but when I was having that experience, it was not good. It was not good. It didn't feel good. It was terrifying. It took me to the depths of my soul. But the invitation is, can I now? Now I can, because I can share my story without crying. That's how you know you healed something. Oh, that was a part of my journey because it took me here and it took me there. And, my niece, Hannah, is leaving for college today. And I shared my journey of going to college because I was this shy kid, believe it or not. I'm an introvert. I express as an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert. And back then, I didn't plan for college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did the tour of Texas. I got talked into going to Stephen F. Austin, did a year. Then I got talked going to Texas Tech, did a year and a half. And then I finally got to UT Austin. And I was concerned. My family was concerned. I was the honor kid. I was dealing with emotions that, of this big world that I had no idea how to deal with. But what I shared with Hannah is that had I not gone to Stephen F., Texas Tech was very challenging for me. We don't need to get into it. But when I got to UT, it'll be a book. I'll let you know when I write it. But when I got to UT Austin, and that was a transition because I didn't know anybody. Remember, I'm actually quite shy. I'm much more extroverted now. And so it was challenging to meet new people, and I wasn't in the dorm. But once I finally made my friends, I met my friend Diana Carroll. And we became really great friends. And then Diana preceded me to Los Angeles, so that when I graduated UT Austin with my film degree and I also got a psych degree, I had a job waiting for me. Now, had I looked at going to Stephen F. and then going to Tech and then coming to UT is like, oh, not good, what am I doing, not good, I'm lost, oh my God, I'm getting more student loans. Little did I know that I was being called over here. And then I'm in LA, and I'm having a great time. Came out of the closet, all that good stuff. It's like, oh, freedom, all right. Working in film, life is good. I'm going to the beach, I'm going to the mountains, and I'm struggling with certain things with my family, but I have this life here, and then I get sick, deathly ill. And that pulls me home. But I had no idea when I first landed in LA that was going to pull me home. And then it brings me to my nieces and nephews. And then it brings me into nonprofit management. And then it brings me into ministry. And now can you see that I'm starting to go into my journey? But if I did not radically accept all the different challenges that I had, the challenges in college, the challenges in dealing with the world emotionally, the challenges with getting sick in LA, the challenges with literally not making probably $3 million, that would be really handy right now, for retirement. I had to radically accept that in order to give myself the freedom to surrender to what was greater that was seeking to reveal itself in my life. Because if I stayed in the story from a negative perspective, it's like quicksand. It doesn't liberate you. It was part of my journey. And so where has your journey led you? Right here, somebody said. Right here. Exactly. Right here, right now. And I remember the first time I walked into Agape in Los Angeles, but then the first time I walked into Center for Spiritual Living Dallas, here I found home. And I found a community that would accept my journey, that would understand it, that would invite me into something greater. And the journey is an evolution of consciousness. And it's also the understanding that I have gifts to share in the world, but they're not my gifts. It's the way God shows up as me. It is the acceptance that there is some greater reality that has this personality, this body, and this incarnation in this moment that will never, ever exist again. I do believe in reincarnation, but I won't be that same soul. Who knows what I'll be? I'll run into friends of mine. I'm like, oh my gosh, you look so much better than when we were cavemen. Yeah, this is great. Looking good. All right, I like this incarnation, And so it's that looking at your story and how things happen, choices that maybe you regret, but in the bigger picture, they led you to what you're doing now. I have friends who've experienced severe addiction, but they're amazing counselors. Amazing counselors. I've had friends experience, violence as children, and they're advocates for children right now. And so we didn't say any of that was good. It was part of the story that led to the journey, to the awareness that something greater was seeking to reveal in their lives. And when we awaken to that, we get to these turning points. Like I said, they don't have to be the 2x4 effect all the time. You really can, start making some conscious choices and like, yeah, you know what? I get to live my life. This is my business. Because how many of you experience people trying to get in your business? Anybody? Just me? All right. They mean well. We got to love them unconditionally. But this is your life, your journey, your gifts. God is you seeking to reveal. And there's a new vision that is calling you. And the very fact that you're here at Agape receiving spiritual principles and tools from Reverend Lee and Jean and all the classes that you take and your practitioners and each other offers you the opportunity to step into that magnificence in a healthy way. But we don't judge our choices. Just like Anthony Bourdain, had he not had that entire journey, he would not have been who he was. I don't think at the time of his death he realized the impact that millions of us mourned him. But I'm so grateful he awakened us to the interconnected nature of life through his gift, which is why I focus on his life and not the death. And I don't drink a lot. I'm not a big drinker, but I'll go with my mom and we'll watch an episode of Anthony Bourdain with a half a beer in honor of him, But the whole point is that there's something right now calling you. That's been my theme since I've been here with Wonder Woman, the divine feminine. The divine masculine is about vision. It really is about vision. It's about courage. It's about strength. It's about tuning in to what is calling me. It's this energy that is so intense that you can't say no to it. I mean, you can, but it's going to stalk you. I'm just saying, And so a friend of mine called me the other day, and I won't tell you who it is. It's at another center, and she's just had this huge revelation that she's got to move. My babies are all grown. Got to talk to my boyfriend. But I'm being so called, and I have to say yes. I have to say yes. I have to say yes. I go, you just said yes. All right? And it's in that yes that we can look at our story with radical acceptance. This has brought me to this point. Just think of it as stepping stones, all right? I took this turn, and then I took this turn, and it took me here. It's like, I have a choice. And here's the beauty of knowing these principles and practices. That one, when we do our meditation and our spiritual work, you really will attune to that whisper. It doesn't have to be a 2x4 effect, all right? But Spirit's going to give you clues, all right? And you got to pay attention. So when I was a junior church teacher at my other center, I was all hot, mad at God, because I just come out of the illness. I was working part-time. I'd been working at school, and now I'm at Center for Spiritual Living Dallas. I'm like, okay, God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I need a sign now. And I am not lying. I am on Midway. This green BMW pulls out, and on its license plate, it had the word write, W-R-I-T-E. And I've always wanted to write, And I was like, okay, all right, so I do write. I haven't published the way I want to, but I'm in that process. So we have to pay attention to the inner clues and the outer clues, all right? Pay attention to if there's subtle judgments about yourself or the voice of somebody else in your head. All right? You shouldn't do that. Who do you think you are wanting to have that dream? Or like, that's not a secure job. So my conversation with my niece, I go, you've got to follow your heart. You have to follow your passion. And then tune in to the new vision because we don't want to become complacent. We don't want to be stuck. Because when we're stuck, we're unhappy. When we're unhappy, it radiates out to other people. And we're here to lift each other into our greatness. So the 3 questions I invite you now to ask yourself is what makes you happy? So say, what makes me happy? What do I dream? And what is calling me? So close your eyes for a second. And I'm going to ask you, and allow your heart to listen. So what makes you happy? And listen to the thing that first pops up. And the voice of God, which is the divine as you, that wisdom is gentle, it is kind and loving. What makes you happy? Now I ask you, what do you dream? What dream is seeking to reveal itself with your gifts and talent and exquisite nature? What do you dream? And what is calling you? What is calling you? Are you willing to answer that call, knowing that you are fully supported by this infinite universe, infinite love, infinite joy, infinite wisdom, infinite harmony, infinite understanding, all that God is, that is your very life. Are you willing to answer the call? Now open your eyes, and the people that you connected with before, quickly, we just have about a minute, try to answer at least one of those questions with each other. Give your time for each other. What makes you happy? What do you dream of? What is your calling?
I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wallach. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.